You're lucky to even be here. Don't get comfortable. What followed exposed every fragile ego in the room and left one man watching his power collapse. Stay with us. This is where illusion breaks, truth settles in, and one woman walks away whole, while another story learns how redemption really works. Where in the world are you watching from tonight? Drop your city in the comments. Have you ever rewritten your own story? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Black Stories Untold with love, and ring that notification bell for more heartwarming stories that celebrate strength. The invitation arrived, rammed in heavy cream paper and quiet arrogance, the kind that assumed it would be accepted without question. Kodie Young barely glanced at it before setting it on the marble counter of his penthouse, where the city lights bled through floor-to-ceiling windows like a private constellation built for him alone. His name had long stopped meaning effort. It meant access. It meant deference. It meant rooms opening before he ever reached the door. He stood there for a long moment, jacket still on, tie loosened, watching his reflection in the glass. 38 years old, impeccably composed, handsome in the way money had refined rather than earned. Kodie had been applauded for so long that silence felt like an insult. Wealth had bored him. Praise had dulled. The gala promised the same faces, the same laughter timed just right, the same reverence disguised as conversation. Another night where nothing challenged him. That was when the idea settled in. Not loudly, not with excitement. It arrived the way entitlement often does, calm and unquestioned. A statement would wake the room, a reminder of who still held power, of who could bend tradition without consequence. Kodie reached for his phone, thumb hovering as if this were merely another business decision. In his world, it was. Blaire Martin was not someone people noticed unless they needed something done well and without fuss. She moved through his orbit like air, essential but unseen. She worked quietly, efficiently. Her presence registered only after the fact when everything was already in order. Kodie had observed her in passing, the way she listened more than she spoke, the way her posture never softened into apology, the way her beauty did not ask permission. When he asked her to attend the gala with him, he framed it casually, as if he were offering opportunity, as if the invitation carried generosity rather than intent. His tone was smooth, practiced. He did not explain. He did not need to. Power rarely feels the need to justify itself. Blaire looked at him then, really looked at him, her expression unreadable. The room held its breath in a way Kodie did not notice. He mistook her stillness for compliance. He mistook her silence for acceptance of the role he had assigned her without consent. She said yes with a calm that unsettled him for reasons he could not name. No smile, no gratitude, just a simple agreement that landed heavier than refusal might have. Later, alone in her apartment, Blaire stood in front of her mirror and studied her own reflection. The invitation sat on the table behind her like a challenge, left unspoken. She understood exactly what this was meant to be. She had spent her life learning the language of rooms where she was never meant to belong. She knew the difference between inclusion and display, between being invited and being used. She did not accept because she was unaware. She accepted because she was not afraid. The gala would be held in a place built to celebrate excess and polish it into something called tradition. Crystal chandeliers, polished floors, generations of quiet exclusion disguised as elegance. Blaire imagined the room already. Imagined the eyes that would skim past her and then return when curiosity sharpened into something less polite. She imagined Kodie beside her, confident in his control of the narrative. What he could not imagine was how little control he actually had. That night was never meant to honor her. It was meant to reduce her, to turn her presence into punctuation in a story about his relevance, But Blaire carried something into that invitation no one had accounted for, a stillness that did not shrink, a dignity that did not ask to be granted, and a resolve to walk into the light exactly as she was, whether the room was ready or not. The door had been opened for spectacle. What stepped through would be something else entirely. Before the gowns and the chandeliers, before the music tuned itself to perfection and the mirrors caught every flicker of light, Blaire Martin stood in the quiet of her own space and let the silence settle around her. This was the part of the story no one ever watched. The moment before eyes arrived. The breath before judgment. Her apartment was modest but intentional, warm light, clean lines, a life built with care rather than excess. She moved through the room slowly, deliberately, each step grounded. Blaire had learned long ago that stillness could be a form of power, that observation was often safer than reaction. Her eyes held that knowledge now, calm and steady, reflecting a woman who had learned how to read a room before it tried to define her. She stood in front of the mirror without rushing, studying herself, not with doubt, but with recognition. Her beauty was not polished for approval. It was lived in, earned, the kind shaped by endurance rather than indulgence. Her posture carried stories no one had bothered to ask about. Long days of being overlooked. Long nights of deciding who she would become despite it. Elegance sharpened by survival does not announce itself. It simply exists. Blaire knew exactly why Kodie Young had asked her to attend the gala with him. There was no confusion there, no illusion. She understood the mechanics of power too well to pretend otherwise. She had seen it at work in quiet offices and crowded rooms, the way proximity to influence could turn people into props, the way silence was often mistaken for consent. What Kodie did not know was that Blaire had stopped explaining herself a long time ago. She had nothing left to prove to people who never intended to see her clearly. Not her intelligence, not her worth, not her right to take up space. The invitation had not unsettled her. It had clarified something. This was not a test she needed to pass. It was a moment she would simply move through on her own terms. She opened her closet and ran her fingers across fabric chosen with care. Nothing loud, nothing apologetic. The dress she selected did not shout for attention. It did not hide either. It fit her the way truth fits when you stop trying to be smaller. When she slipped it on, the mirror reflected a woman fully present in her body. Unbothered. Unbowed. As she fastened her earrings, memories surfaced without warning. Rooms where she had been mistaken for staff, conversations that paused when she entered, compliments that carried surprise instead of respect. She had learned how to smile through it, how to leave with grace, how to keep her voice steady when the ground shifted beneath her. Each experience had shaped the woman standing here now, not hardened her, clarified her. Blaire took a final look at herself and inhaled slowly. This night was not about impressing anyone. It was about remaining intact, about walking into a room designed to erase women like her and refusing to disappear, about holding on to herself no matter how the air shifted around her. She picked up her bag and turned off the light, stepping into the hallway with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly who she was. Whatever awaited her under the chandeliers and the stairs and the carefully measured smiles, she would meet it as herself. The spotlight had not found her yet, but Blaire Martin was already ready for it. Kodie Young had learned early how to wear confidence like armor. It was stitched into him through tailored suits and boardroom victories, reinforced by handshakes that lingered just long enough to remind everyone who held the advantage. His presence filled rooms before he spoke. And when he did, people leaned in. Not because he was wise, but because he was wealthy. The two had blurred into one long ago. That night, as he prepared for the gala, he adjusted his cufflinks with practiced ease and studied his reflection with the detached approval of a man accustomed to admiration. Everything fit exactly as it should. The suit, the watch, the image. Only the center of him felt strangely weightless, like a structure built beautifully around an empty space. Kodie did not dwell on that feeling. He never had. He preferred motion to introspection, action to silence. Power, to him, was something you displayed. It had to be seen to be believed. He had grown bored of quiet authority and tired of predictable reverence. The city applauded him without hesitation, and applause, when it comes too easily, begins to feel like background noise. The gala offered an audience, and with an audience came opportunity. Not for connection, but for control. He told himself the invitation was clever, a kind of social commentary wrapped in irony. He framed it as harmless provocation, the sort of thing people would talk about over champagne and then forget by morning. He believed intention mattered more than impact because intention had always protected him before. In his world, harm was something that happened to other people. Around him, the men who shared his circle moved through life with the same polished entitlement. They laughed too loudly, agreed too quickly. Their jokes landed with the confidence of men who had never been asked to explain themselves. Kodie watched them gather, watched their approval flicker when he mentioned his plan. The laughter that followed was easy and complicit. A shared understanding passed between them. This was how power reminded itself it still ruled the room. What Kodie did not recognize was the hunger beneath his certainty, the need to provoke rather than participate, to dominate rather than belong. He mistook attention for meaning, control for relevance. Shock had become his language, because it was the fastest way to feel something when genuine emotion felt distant and dangerous. He thought himself untouchable. He always had, mistaking his insulation from consequence for immunity from truth. Every misstep before had been smoothed over by money or charm or silence bought at the right price. Apologies had been optional, reflection unnecessary. The world had taught him that men like him did not fall. They simply redirected. As he stepped into the night, he felt the familiar rush of anticipation, the kind that came when he knew all eyes would eventually find him. He expected curiosity, amusement, maybe even admiration for his audacity. He did not expect resistance, certainly not reckoning. Privilege has a way of convincing itself that it is permanent, that the rules bending in your favor is the same as the rules disappearing altogether. Kodie had lived so long inside that illusion that he could no longer see its edges. He believed power was something you wielded over others, not something that could slip through your fingers the moment you underestimated the wrong person. The gala lights waited ahead, bright and forgiving. Kodie walked toward them with the confidence of a man, certain the night would end the way it always had. With him, untouched, unchanged, still in control. He did not know that control was already leaving him. The ballroom glows the way only old money knows how to glow. Crystal chandeliers scatter light across polished marble floors. Silk and velvet drift through the air. Laughter floats easily, rehearsed and weightless, moving from cluster to cluster like perfume. This room has seen generations of power congratulate itself. It is built for spectacle and certainty. Kodie stands near the center of it all, comfortable in the familiar warmth of attention. He watches faces tilt toward him, feels the ease with which he belongs here. This is his element. This is the world that has always reflected him back with approval. He waits for the moment to unfold exactly as he imagined it. Then Blaire enters. She does not announce herself. She does not hesitate. She crosses the threshold with quiet intention, as if the room were simply another place she had decided to occupy. The dress she wears is not submissive or decorative. It is deliberate. It fits her body like truth fit a life lived awake. She is not dressed to serve. She is dressed to exist fully. The change is immediate. Conversations stumble. Laughter falters mid-breath. Heads turn not out of curiosity, but recognition. Something in the air tightens. Eyes follow her without permission. Whispers begin, soft at first, then spreading like a ripple across the room. Who is she? Is she with him? Do you see how she walks? Blaire moves forward with a composure that cannot be borrowed or taught. Her back is straight, her gaze steady. She carries herself as if she belongs everywhere she places her feet. Not defiant, not apologetic, simply present. Her beauty does not plead. It claims. Kodie feels it then, a subtle shift beneath his confidence. He had expected amusement, smiles edged with curiosity, perhaps a few indulgent chuckles behind raised glasses. What he feels instead is unease. The room is not laughing, it is watching. The response to Blaire is not pity, it is awe. She does not shrink under the weight of their attention. She does not soften herself to ease their discomfort. She walks as if she has already survived whatever judgments they are preparing to make. That knowledge radiates from her. It cannot be dismissed. It cannot be explained away. Kodie watches the expressions change, interest replacing arrogance, appraisal giving way to something quieter and more dangerous. Respect. He feels the room, slipping from the script he had written so confidently in his head. This was supposed to be controlled, predictable, a moment where his power would be reinforced through spectacle. Instead, the spotlight bends toward her. Blaire pauses briefly near the center of the ballroom, not to seek approval, but to orient herself. Her eyes scan the room calmly. She takes in the chandeliers, the faces, the history heavy in the walls. She is not overwhelmed. She is aware. And awareness, in a room built on illusion, is disruptive. Kodie realizes then that he has made a mistake more serious than misjudging a reaction. He has misjudged a woman. He assumed proximity to his power would define her. He assumed the room would see her the way he had framed her. As a concept, as a statement, as something temporary. But Blaire is not temporary. She is standing there now, undeniable and intact, and the room is adjusting around her instead of the other way around. People lean in. They look longer. They reconsider. The energy shifts from indulgence to curiosity, from control to uncertainty. For the first time that evening, Kodie feels something he has not planned for. The faint but unmistakable sensation of being outmatched, not through force, not through confrontation, but through presence. He watches Blaire take her place beside him, the distance between them charged with everything he failed to anticipate. The gala continues around them, music swelling back into motion, conversations resuming with altered tones. But the room is no longer the same, and neither is he. The moment does not arrive with drama. It slips out of Kodie the way arrogance often does, unguarded and careless, softened by champagne and an audience that has always rewarded his confidence. A remark tossed lightly into conversation. A smile that assumes agreement, a clarification delivered with smug ease. He makes it clear, loudly enough to travel, that Blaire is part of a joke, that her presence is intentional, that she is here to illustrate power, not partnership, status, not respect, control disguised as cleverness. The words fall into the room and shatter. They do not explode, they slice. Sharp and sudden, broken glass scattered across polished floors. Conversations stop mid-breath. Faces freeze in practiced smiles that no longer know where to land. Someone shifts uncomfortably. Someone else lowers their glass. The chandeliers continue to glow, indifferent witnesses to the fracture spreading through the air. Blaire stands beside him, close enough that the insult is unavoidable, close enough that everyone sees who it is meant to cut. She does not move. She does not flinch. She does not shrink. Her expression remains calm, almost serene, as if she has stepped into a familiar storm and knows exactly how to stand still within it. She turns her head slowly and meets Kodie's gaze. Her eyes hold no panic, no pleading, no wounded surprise, only clarity. That is when the silence deepens. Outrage would have been easier. Tears would have been digestible. Anger would have allowed the room to choose sides and feel absolved by sympathy. Blaire offers none of that. Her restraint leaves nowhere to hide. It asks nothing of the audience while revealing everything about them. The room watches her now, not him. She stands with a dignity that does not perform, a stillness that refuses to entertain cruelty. In that quiet, society sees itself reflected. Its casual hierarchies, its indulgence of power when it flatters, its habit of laughing along until the laughter turns uncomfortable. Kodie senses it before he understands it. A shift beneath his feet, the air thickening. He feels eyes on him that were once friendly, now measuring, evaluating. Something has gone wrong, but he cannot yet name it. He had expected approval, or at least complicity. Instead, he feels distance opening around him like a widening circle. Someone clears their throat, someone else looks away. A woman near the bar studies Blaire with new attention. Admiration blooming, where curiosity once sat. A man Kodie knows well frowns slightly, as if seeing something he had never noticed before. Blaire says nothing. Her silence is not submission. It is refusal. Refusal to validate the insult by reacting to it. Refusal to carry the emotional labor of explaining why the remark is wrong. Refusal to become smaller so the room can remain comfortable. Kodie's smile falters, just slightly. He attempts to recover, to smooth the moment with humor, with charm, with the same tools that have always worked. But the sound of his own voice now feels louder, less assured. The room no longer cushions him. He realizes then that the joke has escaped him, that control has slipped its leash. He has exposed something raw and unflattering, and Blaire has allowed it to sit fully in the light. The silence stretches longer than is polite, longer than is safe. In that pause, something irreversible happens. The narrative shifts. The room no longer sees a powerful man making a statement. It sees a man revealing himself. And beside him stands a woman who has been reduced to a prop and refuses to play the role. Blaire's gaze holds steady for one final moment, not confrontational, not forgiving, simply present. Then she turns slightly, reclaiming her space without drama. The gala resumes around them, but the damage is done. Kodie feels it now, unmistakably. The room is no longer with him. It is watching him. And for the first time in his life, he understands that power once questioned does not return quietly. The room expects something from her. An outburst, a tremor, a reaction sharp enough to turn into gossip by morning. It waits with the hunger of people who have grown accustomed to watching harm dressed as entertainment. Blaire feels that expectation press against her skin, but she does not rush to satisfy it. She breathes. Then she turns. Her movement is unhurried, deliberate. When she speaks, her voice is steady, neither raised nor softened. It does not shake. It does not plead. It lands with the quiet certainty of someone who knows exactly where she stands. She does not name Kodie first. She names the moment. She speaks of presence and intention, of how easily people confuse proximity to power with permission to diminish. Her words are simple, precise, impossible to misinterpret. There is no venom in them. No performance. Just truth laid bare. The room leans in without realizing it. She says dignity is not something bestowed by wealth or status, that it is carried, not granted, that respect does not arrive through association but through recognition of humanity. Each sentence removes another layer of comfort from the space, not violently, methodically. Blaire does not accuse. She does not need to. She describes what has happened plainly, allowing the weight of it to settle where it belongs. In doing so, she invites the room to see itself clearly. The laughter that came too easily, the silence that followed too quickly, the way many watched instead of intervened. Faces tighten, eyes drop. A few people shift their weight, suddenly aware of their own stillness moments earlier. Kodie stands beside her, no longer the center of gravity. He feels smaller now, not because she has attacked him, but because she has refused to orbit him. Her composure strips the moment of spectacle. There is nothing to mock, nothing to dismiss as emotion or exaggeration. What remains is accountability. She speaks of jokes that are never jokes, of statements framed as cleverness that carry generations of harm, of how power often mistakes itself for humor when it wants to avoid responsibility. Her tone remains even. Calm enough to be undeniable. The chandeliers seem harsher now, the light less forgiving. Blaire does not ask for understanding. She does not ask for apology. She simply claims her right to exist in the room without being reduced. She reminds them that silence is not neutrality, that watching harm unfold without objection is a form of agreement. The gala changes shape around her words. What was once a celebration of excess becomes a mirror no one asked for but cannot look away from. This is no longer about one man. It is about a culture that rewards audacity until it is forced to reckon with consequence. Kodie tries to speak, but the moment has passed him by. Anything he adds now would sound defensive, smaller, exposed. He realizes too late that she has not taken anything from him. She has given the room something it did not want, but desperately needed. Blaire finishes without flourish. No dramatic pause, no demand for reaction. She steps back into herself, her presence intact, unshaken. The silence that follows is different from before, heavier, honest. Applause does not come. It would be inappropriate. What arrives instead is stillness, reflection, a collective discomfort that signals something real has occurred. Blaire does not expose Kodie. He has done that himself. She simply stood where she was and refused to disappear, and in doing so, she transformed a night built to celebrate power into a reckoning that power could not escape. The room exhales all at once, but nothing returns to normal. The music resumes out of obligation, not joy. Conversations restart with caution. The gala continues because that is what it has always done. Move forward, no matter what cracks beneath the surface. But the atmosphere has shifted. Something essential has been disturbed, and everyone can feel it. Phones appear quietly in hands, once used only to hold crystal glasses. Screens glow beneath tables and behind half-turned shoulders. Messages are typed without words spoken. Names are searched. Moments replayed from different angles. What happened here refuses to stay contained within these walls. Kodie feels it before he sees it. The subtle change in how people look at him. Not with admiration, not with indulgence, with calculation. His name moves through the room like a rumor with teeth. Not shouted, whispered, the kind that grows stronger the more it is denied. He tells himself this will pass. It always has. Another night, another headline, another wave that money will smooth into irrelevance. He repeats this belief like a mantra, gripping it as tightly as he grips the stem of his glass. He smiles when someone looks his way. The smile does not reach his eyes. Across the room, Blaire moves without hurry. She does not linger for validation. She does not scan faces for approval. She has already reclaimed herself. The weight of the moment does not cling to her because she never carried it to begin with. She walks as she arrived, composed and whole. People part for her now, not out of command, but respect. Eyes follow her with something closer to reverence than curiosity. The same mouths that stayed closed moments earlier now struggle with the desire to say something meaningful and the fear of saying the wrong thing. Blaire offers them no guidance. She owes none. Kodie watches her leave the center of the room and feels the distance between them stretch into something irreversible. He wants to speak, to explain, to soften what cannot be softened, but the words that once served him so well feel useless now. There is no version of this moment where he emerges unscathed. For the first time, his wealth cannot buy silence. There is no check large enough to collect what has been released into the open. The truth has legs now. It moves through conversations and screens and quiet realizations. It is no longer his to control. The humiliation he intended to give has turned back on him with precision, not loud, not cruel, just complete. He feels stripped of the performance that once protected him. The charm that always smoothed edges now rings hollow. He stands in the room surrounded by people and feels profoundly alone. Blaire reaches the exit and pauses briefly, not to look back at him, not to acknowledge the room. She takes one last breath of the space and then steps out of it, leaving behind chandeliers and whispers and a man still standing in the wreckage of his own making. Outside, the night air is cool and steady. Blaire inhales deeply, grounding herself. The city continues as it always has, unaware of the small shift that just occurred inside its walls. She does not feel victorious. She feels free. That is enough. Inside, Kodie remains where he is, trapped in a version of himself that no longer convinces anyone, not even him. He realizes with a quiet dread that something fundamental has changed. The audience he once commanded has become a mirror he cannot turn away from. There is no applause for aftermaths like this. No neat resolution, only the slow unraveling of certainty, and in that unraveling, the beginning of a reckoning he cannot avoid. They are brought back into the same orbit by necessity rather than choice. Meetings scheduled too quickly to decline. Emails framed as urgency and alignment. Conversations labeled as strategy and reputation management. The language of damage control wraps itself around them. Polite and bloodless, pretending nothing irreversible has occurred. Kodie arrives early, as he always does now. He has learned that lateness reads differently when grace has run out. He sits at the long table and watches the door, rehearsing versions of himself that no longer work. Apology first, justification if needed, charm as a last resort. The old sequence that once solved everything. Blaire enters without acknowledging the tension waiting for her. She takes her seat with calm precision, opens her notebook, and focuses on the agenda. Her professionalism is immaculate, her distance unmistakable. She is present, but not available. Kodie begins where he believes redemption lives, with regret. He speaks carefully, choosing words that sound reflective without admitting how lost he feels. He explains the pressure, the environment, the misunderstanding. He frames the moment as a lapse rather than a pattern, a mistake rather than a mirror. Blaire listens. She does not interrupt. She does not soften. When he finishes, she nods once and moves the conversation forward. No reassurance, no absolution. Just work. The absence of comfort unsettles him. He tries again later, quieter this time, less performance, more explanation. He tells her he did not mean it the way it sounded. That intention matters. that he is not that kind of person. The words feel thin even as he speaks them. Blaire responds with clarity rather than confrontation. She tells him she understands intention very well. That intention has long been used to excuse harm without addressing impact. Her voice is steady, her posture unchanged. She does not argue, she states. Kodie feels something tighten in his chest. He had expected resistance. He had not expected refusal. Charm is his final instinct. A well-timed smile, a self-deprecating remark, a reminder of who he has always been to people who liked him. He reaches for it automatically, then watches it fall flat. Blaire does not respond. She does not reward the effort with even polite amusement. Her refusal to engage becomes a lesson he cannot escape. She does not exist to make him feel better. She does not owe him understanding. She is not here to rehabilitate his image or guide him toward absolution. She is here to do her work and protect her peace. That boundary is immovable. This truth unsettles him more than public criticism ever could. For the first time, Kodie is forced to sit with himself without distraction, without applause, without the illusion that proximity to someone he has harmed might somehow cleanse him. Blaire's distance leaves him nowhere to hide. She does not punish him. She simply refuses to participate in his redemption narrative. And in that refusal, he begins to understand the depth of what he has done. He notices how she navigates the room with quiet authority, how others listen when she speaks, how respect follows her not because she demands it, but because she embodies it. She does not adjust herself to be palatable. She remains consistent, unmoved. Kodie realizes then that change cannot be negotiated. It cannot be performed for an audience or extracted from someone else's grace. It has to be chosen in isolation without guarantee of reward. When the meeting ends, Blaire gathers her things and leaves without looking back. No lingering, no invitation for conversation. Kodie stays seated long after the room empties, staring at the place she was just occupying. He feels smaller than he ever has, but not diminished. Stripped, exposed, aware. For the first time, redemption feels like work rather than a transaction, and he is no longer sure he knows how to do the work at all. The noise fades slowly, headlines dull, invitations pause. The world moves on the way it always does, hungry for the next spectacle. What remains is quieter and far more dangerous. Kodie Young alone with himself. He stands in rooms that once affirmed him and feel the absence where certainty used to live. The mirrors still reflect a man polished and composed, but the image no longer convinces him. He sees the gap now between how he appears and who he has been. The distance is unsettling. He has spent his life repairing surfaces. This feels like excavation. Advisors call. Messages arrive framed as opportunity, carefully worded statements, strategic donations, appearances that suggest accountability without demanding transformation. He knows this language well. It is the language of image repair. He could step back into it easily, apologize publicly, be praised for growth he has not yet earned. The path is smooth and familiar. Blaire does not walk beside him on this road. She does not wait. She does not watch. She continues living as she always has, with intention and restraint. Her life does not orbit his crisis. She chooses peace over proximity to power, integrity over access. She makes no promises, offers no forgiveness. She does not need to. Kodie notices her absence more than any criticism, the way she does not check in, does not respond to overtures that once would have been irresistible. She has returned to herself completely. That is the most unsettling truth of all. He realizes then that if he changes, it will not be because she asked him to. It will not be rewarded with her approval. It may not be seen at all. For the first time, transformation offers no applause. He begins with the smallest choices, listening instead of speaking, sitting through discomfort without explaining it away, questioning the instincts that once guided him so confidently. Each day feels heavier than the last because there is no performance to hide behind. He steps away from rooms that once fed him. He declines invitations designed to rehabilitate him without asking anything in return. He finds himself alone more often. The silence is unforgiving. It leaves him with no one to impress and nothing to distract him from the man beneath the image. There are nights when he almost turns back, when the temptation to restore the version of himself the world preferred feels overwhelming. Growth without witnesses is lonely. Change without praise feels thankless. But something in him has shifted. He cannot unknow what he now sees. He thinks of Blaire often, not as a prize, not as absolution, but as a mirror he did not ask for and cannot forget. She showed him what integrity looks like by refusing to perform it for him, by choosing herself without explanation. Kodie understands now that image is something you protect. Change is something you endure. He chooses to endure. Not loudly, not publicly. He begins to do the work that offers no immediate return. He learns when to step back, when to let others lead, when to use his influence without centering himself. The process is slow and uncomfortable and deeply unglamorous. No one applauds. No one congratulates him, and for the first time, that is enough. He stands at the crossroads and walks away from the spotlight, towards something quieter, truer, uncertain. For the first time in his life, Kodie Young understands that becoming better is not about being seen as changed. It is about choosing change even if no one ever notices at all. The final reckoning does not arrive with fireworks or reconciliation. It arrives quietly, the way truth often does when it no longer needs permission to exist. Blaire Martin steps out of the story the same way she stepped into it, upright, intact, untouched by the need for validation. She does not carry the night with her like a wound. She does not replay the moment to extract meaning. She has already done the work of knowing who she is. Nothing about that evening altered her worth because her worth was never on trial. She returns to her life with steady hands and clear eyes, to rooms where she is seen, to work that values her mind rather than her proximity to power, to mornings that begin without explanation and evenings that end without regret. The world has shifted slightly around her, but she has not shifted for it. That is the quiet victory no one can take away. Blaire was invited as a symbol. She leaves as a standard. The night that was meant to reduce her instead revealed her, not as an exception, not as an anomaly, but as a reminder of what dignity looks like when it refuses to negotiate. She does not need to be remembered by name in every conversation. The impression she leaves is deeper than memory. It lingers as discomfort in those who laughed too easily, and clarity in those who finally saw. Kodie Young remains behind, not in disgrace, but in transformation. The illusion that once protected him has cracked beyond repair. He is no longer confused about what he lost that night. It was not reputation. It was the false certainty that power meant immunity. He is stripped now of the easy answers, of the belief that intention outweighs impact, of the comfort of being admired without being accountable. What remains is harder. A man standing in the long shadow of his own becoming. Kodie does not chase redemption. He understands now that redemption cannot be pursued like a deal. It must be lived quietly, consistently, without guarantee of forgiveness. He learns to listen without needing to respond, to witness without centering himself. To accept that some harm leaves no path back to the version of himself he preferred, this is the cost of becoming better. It is not applause. It is humility. The gala that was meant to mock society instead exposed it, its laughter, its silence, its reflex to protect power until power made itself impossible to defend. That night did not end injustice, but it interrupted it. It forced a pause, a moment where people were required to see themselves clearly, even if only briefly. And in that pause, Blaire Martin stood unmoved. Power does not always belong to the loudest voice or the richest man in the room. Sometimes it belongs to the person who refuses to be reduced, who does not explain themselves for comfort, who walks away without asking to be followed. Blaire leaves the narrative whole. Kodie remains to do the work. There is no romance to soften the ending, no tidy resolution to reassure the audience. Just truth. Respect earned and illusion lost. A woman who exits unchanged, and a man who must learn how to live without hiding. In the end, the question is not who was embarrassed or who was redeemed. It is who walked away with power, and that answer was never in doubt. Before you go, turn this story into momentum. Being overlooked is never the ending. It is the beginning. Share this video and become the reason someone believes in their own triumph again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe to Black Stories Untold for more stories that uncover hidden struggles, celebrate strength, and remind us that every voice matters.